From the studios of the Optimism Institute, welcome to the Blue Sky Podcast. I'm your host, Bill Burke, and in every Blue Sky episode, we'll be speaking to leaders, researchers, and thinkers whose stories and insights will remind us that there is always blue sky above. Sometimes you just have to get your head above the clouds to see it. I'll begin this Blue Sky episode with a confession. While I've found many quote-unquote self-help books to be helpful, I'm generally a little skeptical of the genre. But when my trusted friend and my first Blue Sky guest, David Gardner, recommended that I interview Shirzad Chamine, the author of Positive Intelligence, I knew I should take this one seriously. And I'm really glad I did. I got a lot out of his book, and by the end of our recording, I felt like my guest from episode number 1 had helped me make a new friend here in episode number 119. In addition to writing the book, Shirzad has lectured on positive intelligence at Stanford University and has trained faculty at Stanford and Yale business schools. Shirzad has been the CEO of the largest coach training organization in the world. He's a preeminent C-suite advisor, and he has coached hundreds of CEOs and their executive teams. His background includes a BA in psychology, an MS in electrical engineering, and an MBA from Stanford. I hope you enjoy this Blue Sky conversation with Shirzad Chamine as much as I did. Shirzad Chamine, welcome to the Blue Sky Podcast.
Delighted to be here. Looking forward to it.
I loved your book, Positive Intelligence. We will talk quite a bit about that. I'd like to start, however, with your childhood. And you describe in the book that you grew up in a fairly turbulent household, and you were born in early childhood in Iran. Could you talk a little bit about what made that childhood challenging and turbulent?
Well, most important factor was my father was a very scary guy, always full of rage. And it's only recently that I realized part of that was generational rage. We had been part of a small ethnic minority persecuted for 13 centuries. And I think 13 centuries of persecution does it for you.
That'll do it.
So I was terrified of my father. We were growing up in poverty, and my mother was running around scared. So I grew up, it was a traumatic childhood. And in retrospect now, I have converted everything about that childhood into a gift, into a positive. So I would want nothing different about my childhood, but it took a while for me to get there.
I can imagine. And what were the circumstances that brought you and your family to the United States?
Not my family. When I finished high school, I just wanted to get out of an environment where I thought that I was in a small persecuted ethnic minority, didn't quite feel like I belonged. And so when I came here, that was to just discover what's possible in the United States. And it has been a wonderful experience. I have, tried a lot of things, succeeded at some, failed at some.
Yes.
But it has been quite a journey.
Well, and a courageous act. I often describe immigrants as the ultimate optimists, right? To pick up roots and move to a foreign country, a strange land, and make something takes a lot of courage and a lot of hope and optimism. You must have had something in you that drove you.
Well, the thing that drove me, I don't write about this in the book, don't often talk about it, but living in what was an environment where I later realized I was in literally clinical depression for the first 30 years of my life. The thing that sustained me was this whisper in the back of my head. I don't know where this whisper came from, but it was a whisper that said, Shirzad, your path is one day to play on the world stage like your heroes Martin Luther King and Gandhi and change millions of lives. And and this was in my ears since early childhood. I have no idea where it came from. I know nobody spoke it to me, so it was a whisper out of nowhere. And I've trusted it. And I always knew that my path was to play on the world stage and change millions of lives. And it was about transformational change, not just incremental change. And it was about millions, not just hundreds or thousands. and that has always guided me. And I kind of followed that whisper into saying, okay, maybe the United States is the place where I would get access to the world stage and continue with that, living that whisper.
Glad I asked that question. That's incredible. So, your educational path is interesting, at least to me, as I looked at it. You were at San Francisco State undergrad, you got your BA in psychology, then electrical engineering at Columbia, followed by an MBA. So it seems like you're exercising every side of your brain, perhaps, and then coming out with a business degree.
Yeah, and it was in following that whisper. So I thought, okay, how do you change millions of lives? And I thought, okay, probably it has to do through path of psychology and clinical psychology and becoming like a therapist. That's how you change lives most directly. And the problem that I had is I almost went to a PhD program in clinical psychology, and just before I did, I had this. I actually went to a social gathering of a lot of therapists in near San Francisco for the first time ever, and I was just struck by how much illogical, uh, ungrounded thinking was happening, and there was too much for me. What I later kind of called California New Age, undisciplined spiritual conversation. I do believe a lot in spiritual wisdoms, but not in the way that I was experiencing then, which was just very little rational grounding to it. And I thought, you know what, I'm way too rational for just making up all this stuff. That seems to be happening. A lot of these potential colleagues from therapy and psychology. And so I had a change of heart, and I thought maybe there's not enough rational or rigorous approach in therapeutic mindsets to this problem of how do we change lives. And so I had a complete change of heart and said, and actually I went to an initial PhD program in neuroscience because I wanted to now pursue the scientific approach to the human mind. Then I realized actually as I'm studying the brain, it too is not really giving me a lot of answers. It's going a mile deep and an inch wide, and it's just not solving the issue of how do I transform people's lives. So then I just rebelled against all of that and said, hey, get real. Changing lives is just maybe wide-eyed, naive, perception. Let's just go get real and do something rigorous and scientific. So what I can predict is actually going to happen. And that was electrical engineering, and that's how I went to a master's degree in electrical engineering at Columbia University.
And then you decided also to get a master's in business. And if I have it right, that is where you first started thinking about these big ideas that wind up being positive intelligence, about sort of a tug of war, as I think you describe it, in your brain between your saboteur and your sage. So I'm going to encourage everyone to read your book, Positive Intelligence. As a warm-up, can you explain sort of how did you come up with that idea, and what does that all mean, your saboteur and your sage?
Well, the transformation moment you're talking about happened at Stanford Business School. So the Stanford Business School had a popular class that I took as an MBA student. It was called Interpersonal Dynamics, and you would sit around in a circle that you would meet week after week with this small group. I think 8 or 10, fellow Stanford MBA students. You'd sit in a circle, and the rule was you gotta honestly share about your emotions in the moment, how you're feeling in the moment. So towards the end of the quarter, I thought everything was going okay, and somebody turns to me. His voice was shaking, his hand was shaking. He was so nervous, and he said, Shirzad, this is really hard for me to tell you, but I gotta tell you, I often feel harshly judged by you, and it really bothers me. So I told him, John, thank you so much for giving me this feedback. It's really helpful. In the back of my mind, I was thinking, well, of course you feel judged by me, you idiot. You're the biggest loser in this group. And so we were about to move on, and somebody else turned to me and said, Shirzad, she was never Sue, and she said, Shirzad, John saying this to you makes me also have the courage to tell you, I also feel often harshly judged by you, and it really bothers me. And I turn to her and I say, Kathy, thank you so much for this great feedback. I really appreciate it. And then I thought to myself, have you looked at yourself lately in the mirror, Kathy? I mean, come on, don't don't blame your insecurities on me. Get a life. And I was about to move on, and then a third and a fourth person also told me the same exact thing. And if you can believe it, I kept thanking them. And in the back of my mind, I literally kept thinking, you know what, come on, it's amazing how you guys are lining up based on the first biggest loser in the group, second biggest loser, third biggest loser. You guys are blaming your insecurities on me. And what changed my life was there was a guy sitting to my left in the circle. He was one person that in this group I respected a lot, and I had put him on a pedestal, and I thought he was awesome. At this point, he got up in disgust and he went and sat across from me in the circle. And he said, he was shaking too. And he said, Shirzad, I'm so disgusted by your inability to hear the truth. I can't even sit next to you anymore. And he said, I too have always felt judged by you, not negatively, positively. From the moment you met me, you put me on a pedestal, you made up who you think I was. You have never seen me for who I really am. I can't stand it anymore. And the fact that you can't hear us. And somehow in that moment of passionate expression of this feedback, I finally all of a sudden saw, oh my God, they are right. I instantly judge people, instantly have a need to put them in neat little boxes and superior, inferior, smart, dumb, good, bad. I mean, I'm making up stuff so quickly and I have to judge people so instantly and very often negatively. So I instantly realized that in that moment that what I was seeing was not reality. I was seeing the world through a distorted lens of this character in my head, which I called the judge. And this character has a need to instantly find what's wrong with others. And then as I looked into it, realized that this character is constantly judging what's wrong with me too, which is the reason I need to judge others constantly, because I'm judging myself constantly. And so this voice in my head, I labeled it as the judge saboteur, the one that sabotages me. And later on, I realized that the judge is only one of the nasty characters in my head, that I actually have a few more that actually are, and our research shows that there are actually 10 of these saboteurs altogether. Most people have a few. And that was the beginning of the positive intelligence research and framework.
It's pretty amazing that Shirzad has made it as far as he has, given where he started. Raised in Iran as part of a persecuted minority and by a father whom he describes as full of generational rage, he took a step that only a courageous optimist could. He came to America as soon as he finished high school. Clearly a smart person who was eager to learn, Shirzad studied at fine universities, and it was during his time at Stanford when he was in a class that would change his life. After being challenged by his classmates for being too judgmental, he took a hard look at himself and realized he needed to change. And change he did. Now, back to our conversation. I wonder now, as I mentioned your education background and it seemed like you're zigging and zagging, but that psychology undergrad experience probably enabled that epiphany that you had. If you hadn't had that background, I imagine you might not have even taken that class at Stanford.
Absolutely. And the whisper was back that, oh, yeah, you can change lives, and that the path to changing lives is having people recognize that they're constantly sabotaging themselves. And first of all, I had to discover I am constantly sabotaging myself, because this voice clearly was devastating my sense of myself, because it was constantly judging me, but also devastating my relationships. Look at what it had done with my relationship with my classmates and later on to my significant others. So it was the beginning of the recognition of positive intelligence framework, which is inside of our mind. There is a war raging constantly between our inner saboteurs, which are these agents of self-sabotage, including the judge as one of them, and what I call the inner sage, your true self, the one that is positive, the one that's creative, empathic, and all of the wonderful things that propels us forward. The Stanford students where I've lectured on this call this work Jedi mind training, because they basically say this is the war between the inner Jedi and inner Darth Vaders. And so that's what our research is about. That's what our practice is about. Let's do Jedi mind training.
So you spent, before writing the book, you spent many years as a very successful, ultimately CEO of a coaching company. So you coach, and you still coach, I believe, executives. Was this epiphany influencing your coaching, and or were you learning from your clients to reinforce some of these ideas and put more meat on the bone before writing the book? Can you describe the coaching experience and how that might have played into all this?
Yeah, I was for 7 years running the largest coach training organization in the world, and I still call that traditional coaching. Traditional coaching focuses on insightful sessions where we help the client get in touch with their own wisdom and their own answers about their own questions. And it's very powerful, very effective, got me started. And then the problem that I found with it is that I realized there are two problems with traditional coaching. One is that we generate very insightful sessions, but those insightful sessions don't result in necessarily uh, permanent change, because people go with great insights and then those insights don't convert into lasting new habits. And what I realized is that actually, in order to create lasting new habits, you gotta, and insight is only 20% of the game. Building mental muscles to turn those habits into daily practices is 80% of the game. And most traditional coaching fails at generating those lasting new habits. It just stops at insight. That also is the case too often with therapy. It generates great insights, but doesn't necessarily generate lasting daily habits that become lasting behavior change. Second thing is that we were treating the symptoms rather than the root problems. And I think, and so that's where my background in science came through. And I asked myself, and background in engineering, and I asked myself, um, what if we came up with a root cause operating system for personal and professional development? Because there is no operating system. Every approach to, I mean, and the thing that woke me up to this is I was working with a major Fortune 100 company, and they showed me a catalog of workshops and trainings they put their people through. And as I looked at it, it was so glaringly obvious that there is no common operating system. There is one course that teaches the 7 habits of highly effective people, another course that shows the 9 secrets of motivating your employees, another one that shows the 3 ways to manage conflict, another one, the 6 ways of being more effective in sales. No common operating system. And no wonder people barely retain any of this stuff, because it's all treating things at the symptomatic level. So the massive research, our secret sauce, our big contribution, is that we did a massive the factor analysis research to see what's at the root of optimizing or sabotaging both well-being and performance. And for people who don't know factor analysis gets to the root cause of things by asking what's the common factors amongst a lot of variations. For example, if you did factor analysis on colors, you realize at the root of the hundreds of colors that we see, or thousands of colors that we see, there are only 3 factors. There are only 3 factors. There are only 3 colors in the color palette. Notice how massively simplified the job of an artist is when they realize there are only 3 colors that they need to have in their palette. So we did the same thing with personal professional development. We asked ourselves in the factor analysis research, what is at the root of optimizing or sabotaging both well-being and performance? And from that came, what we saw is that there are 10 negative response factors, 10 negative response factors. So those became the 10 saboteurs. And those saboteurs, then we labeled them, these factors: the judge, the controller, the avoider, the stickler, the victim, the pleaser, the restless, and so on, 10 of them. Then on the positive side, what we found is that the positive Jedi powers, there are only 5 root powers. There's empathize, the ability to deeply empathize, have compassion, and potentially love for yourself and others, put yourself in the shoes of others, all of that. Explore, which is coming at things that from beginner's mind, really seeing what's going on with an open beginner's mind. Innovate, which is obvious, thinking out of the box. Navigate, which is being guided by an inner compass of what brings meaning and purpose to whatever you're involved in. And finally, activate, to move into calm, clear-headed, fearless, laser focused action. All you need is these five superpowers of your sage, the Jedi powers, and be able to intercept the negative powers. And with that, all sorts of things take care of themselves. You maximize both well being and performance.
Shirzad describes hearing a whisper early in his life that told him he must go on to influence people around the world. He listened to it, but he also realized that for most of his life, not only did he judge others, he was judging himself constantly. He also saw the challenges of traditional coaching and training programs in that most don't teach us lessons that stick. So, with his work in positive intelligence, he helps us understand our internal judges or saboteurs and gives us a new, as he describes it, operating system to help us live more positive and productive lives in a more consistent fashion. Now, back to our conversation. Writing books is hard work. It's not easy. Was it a response to that whisper? Was your thought, boy, if I can get this all in a book, I'm going to reach so many more people, and I'm going to spread this idea that I think is so powerful? Was it that whisper that made you put in the hard work of creating such a great book?
Yeah, the whisper has kept guiding me, right? So I thought, okay, changing millions of lives requires something that's scalable, memorable. So that's what led to the research on factor analysis, coming up with the positive intelligence operating system, 10 saboteurs, 5 stage powers, and how do you shift from one brain activation to other. So I thought, okay, this is the foundation. Then the book, I thought, okay, if the book is then gonna put it in millions of hands and the whisper is gonna be manifested. So the book becomes a New York Times bestseller. It gets translated to more than 20 languages. People are writing to me from around the world saying, you changed my life. So then I went and told my wife, hey, we have manifested the vision, millions of lives changed. And there was a catch. And the catch was that 3 months later, 6 months later, I would email those people back, reach out to them. Okay, you told me I changed my life. I changed your life. You read the book. How are you doing now? And most of them said, you know what, I was so inspired and loved the ideas and the concepts. And I've mostly gone back to my old ways. And then the obvious became apparent to me. And I realized that I too have read life changing books. I too have gone through life changing workshops where at the end of this multi day workshops, I've said, oh my God, I'm transformed, I'm transformed, I'm transformed. And within a few days, within a few months, I went right back to my old behavior. And the reason is obvious. It's so glaringly obvious. The reason is that my saboteur habits live in the brain in a form of neural pathways. The reason the judge, the controller, the avoider, whatever saboteur I have, the reason they are my automatic mental habits is because I have done them over the years so much that they live in the brain in the form of neural pathways. I call that the muscle power of that saboteur. So our self-sabotaging ways have muscle power in the brain. You do not fight muscle of saboteurs with insight about the sage. You need to fight the muscle of the saboteurs with muscle of the sage. And the muscle cannot, by definition, be built with a workshop or reading a book. The muscle gets built only by doing daily practices that build new neural pathways. And no matter how much I begged people to do those daily practices after reading the book or doing the workshop, they said, you know what, it just gets too much and they forget. And so what I realized is we needed an app. So several years ago, we finally said, okay, if we want to truly change millions of lives, we have to build an app that helps people to rewire their brains so that they can actually have a sustained transformation. The beauty of it is that what we now get is within 6 weeks of app guided practice, We get 80 to 90% of people responding to things like my stress is significantly lower. I'm much more effective in managing and leading people. All sorts of performance metrics improve. 17 of the 18 emotional intelligence competencies are increased after 6 weeks of this root cause training. And within 8 weeks of practice, Harvard affiliated neuroscientists have shown that this kind of practice actually rewires the brain so much that in MRI imaging, you can see decreased gray matter where the saboteurs live with all their drama and negativity, and increased gray matter where your inner Jedi lives. So we literally are rewiring the brain within about 8 weeks of practice. And that's when sustained transformation occurs.
Incredible. So I've read the book. I loved it. I learned about myself and reinforced some things I probably knew a little bit about myself, but put it in a framework that was extremely helpful. And I shared with you offline that as I took your test, my lead saboteur is I'm a pleaser. So let's use that saboteur, perhaps me, as an example. So how do you, when knowing that you're a pleaser, how do you then free yourself up to be more effective, less stressed? Can you just sort of walk through how that might work?
Yeah, Bill, you when you shared that with me, I said you and I have very similar saboteurs. So you said pleaser and then avoider. So one way to look at saboteurs is that they, if you tell me what your saboteur is, I tell you what your greatest natural strength is. So because one way to look at saboteurs is that they overuse and abuse your greatest natural strength. And as they do that, it becomes your greatest weakness, not your greatest strength. So, for example, knowing that you have the pleaser saboteur, then I would instantly say that most likely you were born with a natural strength of being very sensitive, kind, empathic, and giving as a human being. That's just who you were. And then what happens in childhood, what happens with saboteurs is that the reason we have saboteurs is that in our childhood, our life is at risk because our life is in the hand of strangers and our parents. And basically, we depend on others for our survival. And so, in order to have life be safer, in order for us to get more love, more security, more acceptance, we try to earn those things, more security, more love, all that. We go to our most common naturally available strength, and in your case it might have been being very kind, sensitive, and giving. And so you overdo that, and that becomes the pleaser. And I have that too. So and the other saboteur that you said you had is the avoider saboteur, which is, and what the avoider is, the natural strength. And I have that. My son has that. The natural strength of somebody who has the avoider saboteur is you're very easygoing, even keel, and positive in orientation. You believe life should be a bowl of cherries. Everything should be positive and awesome and wonderful. Let's just not get rigidly attached to anything. Go with the flow. Be flexible, adaptable. Those are wonderful initial strengths, but taken too far, it becomes the avoider. But you don't want to tackle a challenging thing that may not be pleasant. Well, life is supposed to be pleasant and positive. Let's not tackle this thing that might not be pleasant. Or deal with a conflict. Conflict is not pleasant and positive. Let's just not deal with it. So become the avoider, right? So the saboteurs are the overuse of our natural strength. So what we do in our work is say, let's keep the strengths, but have your sage, your inner Jedi, use those strengths when that's the appropriate strength to use, and recognize in situations where that strength is not useful and something else is useful, and let's not overuse that strength. So in my case, and in your case, being a kind, empathic, sensitive person, that's one of the things that has made me a very successful coach. Being kind and empathic is a wonderful strength I bring to coaching. But when it comes to somebody trying to take advantage of me, somebody wanting something, and I really want to say no, but my pleaser wants to say yes because I can't bear disappointing somebody. Those are moments when I want to check in with my sage and say, am I saying yes because I choose to give, because that is a choice I lovingly, joyfully make? Or is it a reluctant yes because I want to please someone? And so I choose all the situations where I want to give and take care of somebody else. And in other situations, say no. Right now, the answer should be no to this person. I should take care of myself. I should set a boundary. I should push back. I should be willing to disappoint this person because that's the right thing to do right now. So you give yourself a choice.
And I think from my limited experience trying to put some of those things into practice, as you do that, back to where you said earlier that understanding this and working on it actually can free you up from stress and make you feel better and be more productive. You can sort of feel yourself, oh, you know what? That wasn't so bad when I said no. They didn't seem to mind. They understood. Shirzad realized that writing a book was a way for him to answer the call of his whisper, to reach a wide range of people around the world and help them understand his helpful theories and exercises. And yes, my profile revealed that I'm a pleaser. No surprise to me there. And I have to say, he had me very well pegged when he described all that this means for me and for Shirzad, who shares my saboteur. Something else you say is, I really liked, is don't judge the judge, and sort of double down. So if I say, oh, I'm a pleaser, and then it's like, well, I got to have a tough conversation, but this isn't going to go well because I'm a pleaser. I'm sort of judging that judge. Is that a fair way to describe it?
Yeah, what you're referring to is very important for this, transformational work that we do. It's very important to recognize that you will not change overnight from Darth Vader's to Jedi. You will not get out of bed Jedi and stay Jedi. So let me use myself as an example. I have the judge saboteur in my head is such a destructive voice. I called him the executioner. He's that dark. That voice is still in my head. He has not gone away. That voice still tells me, Shirzad, you're unworthy of any love or affection or success. Any of your success is a result of luck or circumstance. Any day now, you're going to be discovered for the fraud that you are. You're not worth anything. That voice has never gone away. That voice still comes and whispers those things in my head. The thing that has changed, that's profoundly life-changing, is that voice used to be a giant and I used to trust him. I used to trust every voice in my head as the voice of reason. But now I hear this voice and say, there goes the saboteur again. There goes the executioner. I caught you, go away. And I no longer trust it. So it has gone from a megaphone to a whisper, and my sage has gone from a whisper to a megaphone. So the relative power of these voices change. Those voices never go away. So now back to what you were saying about not judging yourself as you go through this. I still get hijacked. I still fall for these voices once in a while, not as frequently, but I do. And when I fall down, when I get hijacked, when I get upset and frustrated and all these negative things that are saboteur oriented, I don't let the judge voice come in and say, Shirzad, you idiot, look at you. You're still imperfect. You can never change. Come on, give up. Go back. I don't let him do that. I say, okay, I'm hijacked right now. I'm human. It will take me a while to recover. So I do these 10-second exercises we can teach your audience to shift my brain activation. And while I am still hijacked and feeling negative and in saboteur mode, I give myself loving compassion for the human being that I am, who happens to have these saboteurs still, rather than let the judge come and beat me up for being so imperfect, which is a very tricky thing to make sure that I stay down and go back to my old ways.
Amazing. And I would assume too that realizing you're never going to completely get rid of the saboteur, you're going to diminish it, but it's always going to be there, set you up for success. If you think somehow you're going to undo, 50 years of this thing building up, that's unrealistic and you're set up to fail. But understanding it's going to be there, but you're going to have some fun with it. You're going to recognize it. You're going to label it. You're going to call it out. I assume that's a big key to your success.
Exactly. And that's the one way we know we are in saboteur mode. Actually, the most important way we know we're in self-sabotage mode is when we are in negative emotions for more than a second. So if I'm feeling angry, upset, disappointed, stressed, anxious, frustrated, feeling shame, guilt, if I'm feeling any of these things for more than a second, I am in self-sabotage mode. I'm in saboteur mode. Now, some people say, well, how can you say that? Are negative emotions helpful to help you protect yourself and all of that stuff? And otherwise, why would we have them? And I tell them, well, let's use the following analogy. Is pain useful for you? Is it good to have pain? And people think about it and say, yeah, pain is helpful. Why? Because if the oven is left on and I put my hand on the hot stove, it's good for me to feel pain. If I don't feel the pain of my hand on the hot stove, I'll keep my hand there and it will burn to the bone. So it's good to feel pain. But here's the $1,000,000 question. How long would you like to feel your hand on the hot stove before you get the message and remove your hand? And so hopefully the answer is a split second. The job of pain is to give you an alert for something needing your attention. The job of all negative emotions, anger, shame, guilt, disappointment, stress. Stress is really good for you. Anger, shame, guilt are really good for you. Without them, we wouldn't have a conscience. Without them, we wouldn't be alerted to something needing our attention. But once you get alerted, if you keep feeling angry and upset and stressed and frustrated and guilty and ashamed, your saboteurs are keeping your hand on the hot stove and complaining why life is so hard. You're sabotaging yourself. So what we teach people is after a second of feeling negative emotion, we want them to begin to shift their brain activation so that they quiet the region of the brain where all these saboteurs live and energize the part of the brain where the inner Jedi, the sage, lives. And these techniques are very powerful. There are 10-second techniques. We call them PQRFs. Maybe we can show your audience how to do one of these things.
Sure. Take it away.
Well, Bill, please do this with me. So please take 2 fingertips and gently rub 2 fingertips against each other with such attention that you can feel the fingertip ridges on both fingers. So gently rub 2 fingertips against each other with such attention that you can feel the fingertip ridges on both fingers. All right, so that was APQ-RAP. And if we had your head under a functional MRI machine, we would notice that you ever so slightly quieted the region of the brain where all your saboteurs with all their negativity live.
Yes.
And ever so slightly energized the inner Jedi, the sage part of your brain, where your access to deep empathy, curiosity, creativity, meaning and purpose, and fearless, clear-headed action. All those powers live in the sage part of the brain. You ever so slightly energize that part of your brain so you have deeper access to that, so that you can now take action and respond to situations from the positive rather than negative part of your brain.
Amazing. So someone at this point in our conversation, if they find out that you teach in a school, they might be surprised to know it's a business school. And can you talk about how this work that you're describing and what you've written about can make individuals and teams higher performers? What is it? I can see, and we'll all hear in you what you're saying, and make yourself feel better. But how does that translate to performance, to teamwork, to those sorts of things that you teach to business students?
Yeah. Well, remember the factor analysis research asked the question, what optimizes or sabotages well-being and performance? It wasn't just well-being, it was performance. And let me bring it to say the simplest version of performance that people can relate to. It's a basketball game, championship game, the last 10 seconds, the ball is given to you. And if you make it, your team will win the championship. If you don't make it, you are the dog that the entire country hates. In that moment, when the ball is given to you, what is happening in your head? If your saboteurs are running the show, the judge, the hyperachiever, your other saboteurs are saying, oh my God, you better make it, you better make it, you better make it. If you don't make it, everybody's going to hate you, you better make it. And in that stress, athletes choke. We all know that in the most critical moments of games, some of the best athletes on the planet choke, and they fail to do what they could easily have accomplished during practice time. The 2 point shot they could easily have done in practice time. And what is happening in that moment is you simply do not have enough command over your own mind. Because if you had built this command over your own mind, you would have told those voices to get lost. You are not helping, buddy. You are not helping right now. Get lost. All I want is to laser focus on the ball in my hand and the basket. Everything else is just a distraction. So that's a command over your mind that gets built up. It's a muscle in the brain. You cannot get there by insight. You won't go away tomorrow and be better at this. But if you did this practice of doing this 10-second stuff and quieting those voices, they literally rewire the brain so that when moments like that come, you are able to perform better. So we at Stanford, we have shown these techniques to championship level athletes. As you know, Stanford produces so many Olympic athletes. These techniques are used in NFL and other professional sports in the United States. So it's clear that there is with physical performance, there's such a clear connection with where your mind is and how you are able to command your mind for what it is that you need in the moment. Then when it comes to performance, we have shown within, again, 6 weeks of practice, 17 of the 18 emotional intelligence competencies I developed within 6 weeks of this practice. We already have also some established research that shows emotional intelligence is tied to performance. So you can just connect it to that. And then there's a lot more research that I show in the book. The common sense version of this is, just think about it. When leaders need to constantly deal with crisis and change, and the job of a leader, every time that something doesn't go wrong according to what the team wants or planned, you're at the fork in the road. And one fork in the road is the leader comes into the team meeting and says, "Oh, we have screwed up here. This has gone wrong. What's wrong with us? Come on, we got to do better." With that level of negative emotion, and what is happening when you come in with that level of negative emotion in responding to change or problems is that the brains have mirror neurons. And without realizing it, if you as a leader are energized in the negative part of your brain in the saboteur mode, you are automatically unconsciously shifting everybody in the room to their negative brain. So within 30 seconds of a leader starting a meeting, this is wrong, we got to fix this. You have shifted Mark to his controller, Mary to her avoider, Janet to her stickler, and on and on. Everybody's going to be in their saboteur mode, and those saboteurs are all going to create more stress, and they're going to be tunnel vision, and they're going to make work much harder than if this leader had come in and said, "Guys, we have made lots of mistakes, failure has happened, and we're going to figure out how to convert even this failure into a gift or opportunity. Let's figure out how we can turn this into an opportunity." And with that, which is what the sage does, the sage believes that absolutely every circumstance can be turned to a gift or opportunity. And it's a self-fulfilling prophecy when you believe that, because then the meeting is starting with curiosity, with optimism, with how are we going to convert this into a gift? And this is how we're getting it to your passion, optimism. Optimism is a self-fulfilling prophecy. It's a choice of the sage. So when the judge comes in and says, "This is bad, bad, bad," what's happening? It will become worse and worse because everybody goes to their saboteurs. They waste a lot of mental, emotional energy. So a bad thing gets worse before it improves. When the sage comes in, it assumes we can and we shall convert this into a gift or opportunity. And optimism is a self-fulfilling prophecy. It happens, it occurs because we shift ourselves and each other into the positive region of the brain, the inner Jedi, that is far more powerful, capable, creative, empathic, curious, and fearless in action than the saboteurs would be. So of course we're going to do better.
I love that. You're preaching to the choir there, for sure. It's helpful to hear Shirzad say that we should never expect to completely silence the critical voices in our heads, but we can turn them down from being a megaphone to something more quiet and short-lived. These voices he describes are like pain. Pain's useful, but we don't need to endure more of it if we don't have to. So anger, shame, and guilt play a role in making us moral beings, but after feeling and recognizing these, we can move on from them more quickly than many of us do. And let's hear it for Shirzad saying optimism is a choice. I agree. And also that leaders who lead with negativity and pessimism are wildly less effective than those who choose positivity and optimism. A big amen to all of that. Now, back to the final segment of my Blue Sky conversation with Shirzad Chamine. You mentioned there in that example that this person goes to that saboteur, this one goes to that. When you're working with a team, do team members share their own information with everyone else? So I walk in the room, I know, oh, Shirzad's a pleaser. That's probably what's going on here. And is that helpful, or do you keep it sort of private, or how does that work?
So, Bill, you're talking about something that I'm so proud of in terms of what we have accomplished, where, you know what, we have all worked with organizations and teams where people are walking on eggshells with each other. We are irritating each other left and right. The leader has all these flaws, and gosh darn it, when is he or she going to become aware of that and acknowledge it, fess up to it? We gossip behind the leader's back. You know, I wish the leader was better at this and that. We gossip behind each other's backs. We're all walking on each lecture and giving each other feedback because, oh my God, we're going to be defensive to hear anything is wrong with us. And we're all going around pretending we are perfect while knowing we are not, which is a place of great anxiety because we are not living authentically. What we do is we have a 5-minute online saboteur assessment, 5-minute online saboteur assessment, free. Everybody can do it. And you come into a team meeting, the team leader says, you know what, I've just discovered we all sabotage ourselves all the time. Every human being on the planet does it. What I have discovered is I do it through the judge, which all of us do. And then I also happen to have the controller saboteur and the stickler saboteur. This is how I sabotage my own effectiveness and well-being in this team. How do you guys do it? And the fact is that none of these saboteurs are better or worse than anything else. We have normalized, in 5 minutes, we have normalized the fact that every single person on this team is an imperfect mix of beautiful sage and shitty saboteurs. So let's just fess up to it, man. And when the leader goes with theirs and everybody else says, okay, I guess I have this. There's no advantage to not admitting to your saboteurs because everybody knows you have them. We have normalized the fact that everybody has them. And not picking your actual saboteur and pretending you have some other saboteur is not going to be helpful because everybody knows what your saboteurs are. It's easy to see the spinach in somebody else's teeth. And the saboteurs are equally destructive. So there's no advantage to one or the other. So we normalize we instantly normalize the fact that we all have work to do. And in my team, in my organization, we are completely transparent about it.
Amazing. And you could just I could feel the energy change in a room where that happens. And I've done in the past in leadership roles, I've shared assessment results with my team, and then they learned something about me. I had one, I think it was a Myers-Briggs. People are surprised to find out how introverted I am because, especially in a leadership role, I'm out there, I'm positive, I'm all this, but that can drain me. And I had direct reports who thought they were being shunned by me because I didn't invite them out to dinner and I didn't do stuff after work. And finally I shared with them, I was like, guys, I'm actually really introverted. It changed everything. Like, oh, okay. I was like, by the way, I don't invite any of you out to dinner. They all thought I was better friends with this one or that. I was like, no, I'm equal on this. And it changed the whole dynamic. It was incredible. So one thing I'd like to, as we near the end of our time, you said something that I really loved. And I think it goes to the heart of having a positive outlook and being optimistic about the world and other people. You said, after years of judging myself and others, I came to believe that most of us are doing our darndest to be the best human being we know how to be. Can you elaborate on that?
Yeah, Bill, I used to be so judgmental. I would walk on the streets of San Francisco, sidewalks of San Francisco, and literally, as people walk towards me, I would instantly find what's wrong with them. This one is too tall, this one is too short, too fat, too skinny, looks dumb, dresses really weirdly. The reason I was doing it was because my judge was beating me up all the time so much that I needed to cut other people down so that I would feel less bad about myself. And the judge is alive in all of us. If anybody listening to this doesn't think you have a powerful judge voice in your head, I really would love for you to reconsider, because the judge is the universal saboteur in all of us. And then, so now through these practices, through literally rewiring my brain so that the dark part of my brain has atrophied, and the inner Jedi, the inner sage, has increased in strength. When I walk on sidewalks of San Francisco and people are walking towards me, I instantly feel loving compassion towards them. Oh my God, this one feels like she seems to be insecure and not loving herself enough. I wish I could, somehow do something about this. And this one feels really tired, and this one seems anxious. And there's instant recognition of how hard it is to be a human being, how tough it is to be a human being, because all of us are dealing with these powerful negative voices in our head, and it's hard living with these voices. And so I've shifted from that brutal judgment of others to just deep compassion for how tough it is to be a human being. Not because life circumstances are so hard, but because these voices in our head are so devastating. And because most of us have been taught literature and math and physical fitness and all those great things in school, but very few of us have been taught mental fitness, which is what this work is. Where are we supposed to learn this stuff, that you cannot trust every voice in your head, that they live in a part of your brain that you can quiet, that there are these 10-second things you can do, that there is a possibility of rewiring your brain. We just aren't taught this stuff. So how the heck are we supposed to handle this crazy thing called life without this critical missing component, which is mental fitness? And so I feel great compassion for the universe, for us going through life without this missing component. And my passion is to bring this missing component to humanity. I mean, this should be taught in every school. Imagine what happens to our planet if one generation of kids grows up learning that they can't trust every voice in their head, that there is such a thing as inner Jedi, that there is such a thing as building that muscle. What happens to that kid's ability to withstand bullying, to withstand bad teaching or bad parenting even? To what kind of relationships will they build with each other? When they grow up, what kind of politicians would they choose to vote for? I mean, it changes our planet if one generation of kids is raised with this mental fitness. And that's my mission in life, to get us there.
Absolutely beautiful. I'm so glad you had that whisper, A, and B, that you listened to it and followed it. I loved your book, Positive Intelligence. I'm encouraging everyone to read it. And there's so much more that you do now with apps and online tests. And I really thank you for taking this time. I know you're busy, and sharing your wisdom and your enthusiasm with my audience means a lot. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Bill. And I think I would invite everyone to just also do our free Saboteur assessment, which is,
yes,
if they go positiveintelligence.com/assessment, positiveintelligence.com/assessment, in 5 minutes, you'll get to see what your saboteurs are. And that becomes the beginning of a powerful journey, which, of course, along with the book, can really hopefully be beneficial. Bill, I'm really thrilled that, first of all, I think we are kindred spirits. We have the same saboteurs, which means we also have very similar strengths. And your Optimism Institute, the reason I'm here, I thought we are kindred spirits here.
Yes, sir.
And I really wanted to connect. It has been such a pleasure meeting you.
Thank you so much. Very mutual. Take care.
Take good care. Bye-bye.
It's refreshing to hear Shirzad say that we all have work to do, and we can all improve and live better, more productive lives. And I really enjoyed how he described changing his aperture when he walks down the street. And instead of judging people, he empathizes with them. And Shirzad does not exaggerate when he says his saboteur assessment takes just 5 minutes. I've taken it myself, and it's quick and easy. I also really enjoyed his book, Positive Intelligence, and I think many of you will as well. I hope you enjoyed this Blue Sky conversation with my fellow pleaser, Shirzad Chamine. Before you go, we'd appreciate you leaving us a rating or review and hope you'll consider subscribing to this podcast to be sure you don't miss any future episodes. This and all Blue Sky episodes are made possible by the incredible editing and mixing done by the team at Sound On, Sound Off. You can learn more about their work at soundonsoundoff.com. All graphic design and cover art for Blue Sky and the Optimism Institute are provided by Crush Graphics. And that's Crush with a K if you'd like to check out more of their fantastic work at crushgraphics.com. Until next time, I'm the founder of the Optimism Institute and host of Blue Sky, Bill Burke, and I thank you for listening.